We're back. Once again, I am your Jedi Grandmaster through this journey. I'm Tim Costello, and here to join me is Buckets of Blood, not because he's a violent man, but because he wants to heal people. It's Vactor. How are
Yeah.
you doing, good sir?
Excellent. For light and life, love talking about the High Republic. Let's get into phase 2. Woo!
Phase 2, we're back to discuss the rest of the High Republic, Phase 2 and onward, just before the Acolyte drops on Disney Plus next week, June 4th. But you could see it in theaters before, one whole day before it debuts on Disney Plus. At your local theater, you can probably see it either in IMAX or regular formats. But you can order those special passes through Fandango, and they're free, so you don't have to pay a dime. So that's great. Be sure not to miss it. It's gonna be a great time. Vactor saw the footage in the theater, and do you think it's gonna be worth to see the Acolyte in theaters?
Yeah, the way that footage looked, it was like a movie. So I
Right.
think watching these first 2 episodes in the theater is going to be a great experience. And I'm going to try my best to get out to see it. No guarantees, but I'm going to try.
Right. Same here. Uh, we'll see. As with last time, I credit this order of phases of which to digest and consume the High Republic to Utini, an online Star Wars book community. Big thanks to Utinity for this order and being so up to date on Star Wars books and comics, so that we can know what's coming and what has come for the High Republic. First we have Phase 2, and that's called Quest of the Jedi, because Phase 1 was called Light of the Jedi. Disclaimer: I've not read all of Phase 2 because it was coming out as I was crazy busy in life. But Phase 2 actually does a little time jump because, it's Star Wars. Nothing's linear. 150 years before that first book, before Light of the Jedi, and thus 350 years before The Phantom Menace. But so far what I've read is good. I've started reading this first book, Path of Deceit, which is written by Tessa Gratton and Justina Ireland. It's a YA book, and it talks about like the Jedi's conflict with the Path of the Open Hand and how that kind of connects to things that we've been seeing in the High Republic. The Path of the Open Hand leads to the Nihil, because Marchion Ro's ancestors feature very heavily in that. So yeah.
Nice.
And then we have Convergence, which is written by Zoraida Cordova, and got this for Father's Day one year.
Nice.
And she's a Hispanic author, and what's really been great about the High Republic is it's a very diverse, not only diverse cast of characters that we see, but it's also a very diverse group of authors. So really great. And great news is that pretty much all of the authors got to attend the Acolyte premiere that just barely happened. So that was kind of cool to see. Like, because Charles Soule posted on Instagram that they all got to go to the premiere, and that was really cool. That was really kind of made me feel good as a fan of this sub fandom of Star Wars. To see all those guys there. And next we have another audio drama. This is The Battle of Jeddah.
Nice.
The script is by George Mann, and yes, you heard right, Jeddah. That is the very Jeddah that is in Rogue One, and we'll get to see why Rogue Jeddah is in such shambles when we get to Rogue One. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So lots of connections. Then we have Cataclysm by Lydia Kang. Once again, haven't read this, so don't know too much about it. Next, we have Quest for the Hidden City, which is also written by George Mann. Again, haven't read it, but never been disappointed in High Republic.
George Mann did a lot of work.
Yeah, he did. He's been doing great stuff. We'll get to it, but he actually wrote the opening book of Phase 3. So we'll get there. We'll get there. The next we have The Blade, which is a comic that was written by Charles Soule. My man Charles Soule can do no wrong in Star Wars comics, as far as I'm concerned. And it gave a backstory to a Jedi who we've seen in Phase 1, Porter Engle. We get to see his sister, whose name is Barash, and that was something that Soul kind of implemented into the present with the Barash vow, which is basically what Obi-Wan and Yoda do in their respective journeys as Jedi, where they kind of take a vow of silence. They kind of exile themselves and like cut themselves off from everything. So
Mm.
so that's a nice little kind of thing there, and it's very crucial for Phase 3, as we'll see. I actually read a bunch of Phase 3 comics and books before picking up Phase 2, so it was kind of really cool to kind of see kind of like that backwards look and seeing how things kind of tied together. So that was really, really neat. And then next we have High Republic Phase 2 Volume 1. Again, written by Kevin Scott, as he's been writing the High Republic. But we don't get any Keeve Trennis because this is 150 years before her. And so, but we get to see some Jedi who are actually, there's a Jedi and kind of a pirate trader kind of person, and they have a homosexual relationship. So it's nice to see that kind of LGBTQ representation there. So that was really, really neat.
I was going to ask you because the Phase 1 comic is told kind of from Keeve's perspective almost. She's like the antagonist. Who
Yeah.
is in Phase 2? Who is it told from? What's the story?
It's been a hot minute since I've read it, and I read a lot. So, so let me see what we like. You would ask me this.
I'll mark it right here. I'll do an edit. Man, I wish I was caught up.
Yeah, you and me both. Let's see. It's told from the Phase 2 comic is told from the perspective of Vildar Mac, and then we have High Republic Adventures, which takes a character that we've seen that was in Phase 1, and then like that's something that Phase 2 is able to do with this kind of era, is take characters that we've seen in Phase 1 and then explore their backstory a little bit. Like we get to see Markion Ro's ancestors. We get to see Porter Engle at a younger age. We get to see all these characters and things that the thing is they reference the things that Phase 2 is exploring in the past, and then once Phase 2 comes around, they can then show us what the kind of things they were talking about. So that's kind of
Gotcha.
yeah. And then we have more High Republic Adventures, and then Phase 2, Volume 2. High Republic Adventures, once again, it's all ages, and it's all ages, and I wouldn't say it's required reading because it just feels tie-in a lot. It's not as a required reading as the main story, but it's still nice because, as I've been saying here on the show, is you don't have to read everything for the High Republic. I mean, but you are rewarded when you do, because you feel like, okay, I feel like I'm getting something here. I see how this ties into this, and this ties into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And next we have Quest for Planet X, which is a middle grade novel written by Tissa Gratton. And then we have a couple of standalone High Republic adventures, because of something they've been doing with High Republic adventures in Phase 2 and in Phase 3, is we kind of get almost kind of High Republic Adventures spin-offs, and we have High Republic Adventures Quest of the Jedi, which is written by Claudia Gray, and then we have High Republic Adventures The Nameless Terror, which is written by George Mann once again. So that's Phase 2.
Dang.
Yeah, so really cool things. Like I said, I'm actually there's one more thing that I forgot on my notes here. Is this is the YA novel Path of Vengeance. Is the finale of Phase 2, and so it ended here, and that's written by Kevin Scott. So I'm looking forward to reading that, because Kevin Scott wrote The Rising Storm in Phase 1, and that was one of my favorite Star Wars books, because it's just that good. It's just that good. But as always, I would like to thank my dear friend Vactor for joining me today to discuss Phase 2. Vactor, where can folks find you on this fine tapestry of the internet?
Yeah, if you search at Trust in the Force or Trust in the Shorts, You can see Star Wars stuff. If you search at This Comic Cooks, you can search for comic book stuff. And if you really like me, you can check out my link tree. That has all of my links in it.
Yes, and as for me, you can find me on Instagram on Tim Writes Today. I also have a Substack in which you can find me talk about all kinds of stories, not just Star Wars, but all kinds of things, fantasy, sci-fi, and I even interview some authors. I even share some things that I'm writing, and kind of updates on what I'm doing, and that can be found on timwritestoday.substack.com. And stay tuned as we cover High Republic comics in subsequent weeks leading up to the Acolyte, and we would be honored if you would join us.
Trust only in the Force.